What is going on, everyone? My name is Ethan and welcome to the Fandom Hub. Today I'm going to be diving into my ranking of Christopher Nolan's filmography following the release of Tenet last month. I think before I start, it's fair to note that like 90% of Nolan's movies could be argued for the number one spot, so that says something about how talented he is as a director. This list, however, is just my personal ranking. This isn't the correct ranking of Nolan's movies, it's just based on which ones I prefer. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, make sure you guys leave a like because these are my favorite ones to make. And without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Coming in at number 11, Following. I was hesitant to even put this one on the list purely just because it's not really comparable. This was Nolan's first film and it serves as more of a student film than anything. The reason I included it is because even though it almost has no budget, it's still pretty great. It really showcases his potential that early in his career, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's interested. And at number 10, The Dark Knight Rises. Now, this movie being this low isn't to say it's a bad movie, however it does have some pretty big flaws. There's a number of plot holes, the third act of the movie has a lot of pacing issues, and it drags on for way too long. And of all the Nolan films, it's widely agreed that this is easily the weakest written. But other than that, Bane is a fantastic villain, the movie is a solid end to the trilogy, and it's fun to watch from time to time. It's not bad, but for the standards a Christopher Nolan movie should be held at, it could have been a lot better. Next up at number 9, Tenet. It pains me to rank this movie so low. I had super high expectations for this film. I've seen numerous people in love with this movie, and numerous people hating on this movie. I'm kind of in the middle. My main problem with this movie is how needlessly confusing it was. It's essentially a Bond movie with time travel mixed in. It was confusing when it didn't need to be confusing, and the plot wasn't interesting enough to convince me to try and keep up with the timelines. Some of this movie I understood on my first watch, but it took a second watch to really try and figure out what was going on. Even then, now that I see what they were going for, it didn't really land for me. I also wasn't a huge fan of the actor they chose to play the protagonist. I thought they definitely could have found someone a bit better at acting. But all the bad things aside, I really enjoyed watching this movie, mainly for the effects. I love that this movie was done all practically and perfected in the editing process. To be honest, it's kind of one of those next level type of things. However, as far as the story and the plot goes, it gives me kind of a meh feeling. It took what Inception did a little bit too far and felt like it needed a lot more time to develop characters. And at number 8, Batman Begins. A nice kickstarter to the Nolan Batman trilogy, with Liam Neeson nicely thrown into the mix as well. This movie is definitely a big step up from the other three I mentioned. It just doesn't quite have the same rewatchability for me. Everything about it serves as a necessary stepping stone for the critically acclaimed sequel that's unarguably miles ahead of this film. The casting is fantastic, the story is well done, and it was cool to see Nolan's take on a Batman origin story. Altogether, a pretty solid film. And at number 7, Insomnia. Most people would place this movie lower, but I honestly really enjoyed it and it would pain me to put it any lower. It's essentially the story of a cop, played brilliantly by Al Pacino, who is trying to find the culprit in a murder case and is consumed by his insomnia after mistakenly shooting his partner and covering it up. It gives me that type of Twin Peaks Fargo vibe that is just unmatched when it comes to crime films. Another thing that was crazy about this movie was the fact that it was totally different from anything Nolan had put out before. I think that to this day it's still his most different film. It lacks much of what he's known for. However, that doesn't really make it bad in the slightest. I definitely recommend checking this out if I were you. Number 6, Dunkirk. Nolan's take on a war film, but it's so much more than a war film. It has that classic Nolan twist with 3 different stories, the mole, the sea, and the air, all coming together to form an epic story packed with emotion. Every performance is fantastic, and has some of the coolest shots from any movie I've ever seen. My only complaint is that the pacing is a bit slow from time to time, but it honestly can be overlooked so easily. And kicking off my top 5, The Prestige. It was interesting to see Nolan tackle a movie set in this time period. I actually went into this movie not even realizing it wasn't meant to be modern, but that makes for such an interesting film with ties to real-life historical characters and events. The casting is perfect, and don't even get me started on that ending. I don't even want to spoil anything, just go watch this movie if you haven't already. Truly some of Nolan's best work. And at number 4, Memento. This film is just legendary. It helps set the tone for all of Nolan's movies moving forward. It really messes with your brain and turns what we know and love about movies completely around. This film is told backwards. It shouldn't work, but it just kind of flows seamlessly until the end. It's basically a story about a man with memory loss, who keeps photographs and tattoos memories upon himself to help him track down the man who killed his wife. Another movie that I really don't want to spoil, you just have to watch it to understand. Definitely a classic Nolan masterpiece. Before I get into my top 3, I want to take a few seconds to ask you guys to drop a like and subscribe. I work really hard putting these videos together, especially the ranking ones. I'd like to put together a video ranking all of my favorite horror movies, so if we could hit 40 likes, I'll try to get that video out by this weekend. Anyways, back to the video. Number 3, Inception. A lot of people give this one their number 1 spot, and I completely get it. It's a masterpiece that won't be topped, at least not for a while. It's this crazy concept of dreams and heists, mixed with an emotional backstory that ties into everything perfectly. Not to mention, this movie has one of the greatest casts ever assembled. Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy, Michael Caine, you get the idea. It's the ending itself that might be one of my favorite endings to any film. It totally leaves the entire movie's message up for debate, and gives the audience a chance to decide for themselves what to make of the film. And at number 2, The Dark Knight. This movie is a perfect film by practically all standards. Joker was not only perfectly played by Heath Ledger, but he's also the perfect villain for Batman. He offers a real challenge that most heroes in comic book movies don't get. But this movie isn't really a comic book movie. It's more of a crime film than anything. The Joker acts like he's all about chaos, but in reality, he's a criminal mastermind. His plan to take Harvey Dent and turn Gotham's greatest White Knight into a villain that forces Batman to break his one rule is truly mind-blowing. And the fact that Batman sacrifices his reputation to keep Gotham thinking Harvey Dent was always a hero, just a perfect ending, and a perfect movie. A lot of people criticize this movie for Christian Bale's deep Batman voice, but honestly, I think it's just iconic at this point. And in my number 1 spot, Interstellar. I rarely see anyone put this movie in number 1, where I feel it belongs, but it's certainly there for me. This movie just gives me chills thinking about. Nothing will ever beat my first time watching it. If you haven't already seen this movie, stop the video right now and go watch it. I'm gonna try not to spoil too much, but I make no promises. People criticize Nolan for lacking emotion, and this film goes to show that that couldn't be less true. On the surface, it's a space movie, about survival, but it takes a heartwarming family theme and ties that in with a sci-fi twist that I can get behind. A lot of people aren't a fan of the twist in this movie, which I honestly can't see how anyone wouldn't like it, but fair enough. If you didn't like the twist, then I guess I can see how this movie would fall short for you. But come on. The stunning next level visuals, the Hans Zimmer score, the acting performances that blew me away, how could this not be my number 1? I find myself wanting to rewatch this movie all the time, and that's why it takes my number 1 spot. Anyways guys, that's going to be it for the video. Let me know if you enjoyed in the comments below, and make sure to give me your ranking of Nolan's movies. I'd love to hear your input as well. Anyways, it's been Ethan, take care, stay safe, and have a good day. Peace.
I stop spitting and start shoplifting. I'm a nigga, so I'm not winning when the cops kill me. The ops come, we fought them, we lost some indeed. And the outcome, they drop one, they got you, they take shots, we pop two. Not talking no pistols, I'm talking those pills. When I'm talking about shots, yeah, I'm talking about kills. When America plots for the end of us all, on my next